Sarah was in the kitchen, preparing dinner for her family. The aroma of roasted chicken filled the air. She hummed a tune as she chopped vegetables. Her children, Emma and Liam, were playing in the backyard. Their laughter drifted through the open window. Her husband, Mark, was expected home any minute from work. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from the basement. Sarah jumped, her heart pounding. What was that? She thought. Maybe Mark came home early and dropped something. She called out, "Mark, is that you?" There was no response. She waited a moment, then decided to check it out. She wiped her hands on her apron, headed towards the basement door. The door was slightly ajar, which was odd because she always kept it closed. She flicked the light switch, but nothing happened. The bulb must have burned out, she thought. She pulled her phone from her pocket to use as a flashlight. As she descended the stairs, the darkness seemed to swallow her. The basement was cold and damp. The air was heavy with a musty smell. She shivered, wishing she'd grabbed a jacket. "Hello?" she called out again. Still no answer. She swept her phone's light across the room. Everything looked in order. The washer and dryer stood silent. The shelves were neatly arranged with old toys and books. Wait, was that a new box in the corner? She didn't remember seeing it before. Sarah approached the box, knelt to examine it. It was a tattered cardboard box, sealed with duct tape. She tried to lift it, but it was too heavy. What could be inside? Curiosity got the better of her. She started to peel away the tape. Just then, the door at the top of the stairs creaked shut. Sarah's head snapped up. "Who's there?" she shouted. No response. She stood up, rushed to the stairs, but the door was closed. She tried to open it, but it wouldn't budge. It was locked from the outside. Panic surged through her. "Hey, let me out!" she yelled, pounding on the door, but there was no answer. She tried to call Mark, but her phone had no signal in the basement. Great, she thought. Now what? She took a deep breath, tried to calm herself. Maybe the door just swung shut. It stuck. She'd have to find another way out. The basement had a small window near the ceiling. She could try to climb up, see if it's open. Sarah looked around for something to stand on. There was a wooden crate by the washer. She dragged it over to the window, climbed up. The window was covered with cobwebs and dirt. It didn't look like it had been opened in years. She tried to push it open, but it was stuck. As she struggled with the window, she heard a faint whisper. She froze. "Who's there?" she asked, her voice trembling. No answer. She listened again. Was that her imagination? She shook her head, continued trying to open the window. Suddenly, she heard a child's giggle. It sounded like Emma, but it was coming from inside the basement. "Emma," she called out, "is that you?" The giggle stopped. Sarah's heart raced. Her children were supposed to be outside. Did they come in? Without her noticing, she climbed down from the crate, searched the basement again, shining her phone's light into every corner. There was no one there. She must be hearing things. Wait a minute, she thought. The box. She hadn't opened it yet. Maybe there's something inside that's making noise. She went back to the box, ripped off the tape. Inside was a stack of old notebooks, a few tattered books. She picked up one of the notebooks, opened it. It was a diary, dated from the 1970s. The handwriting was neat and precise. July 15th, 1972. I've discovered something incredible in the basement. There's a hidden room behind the shelves. It's small and dark, but I think it's a portal to another dimension. I can feel energy emanating from it. Sarah's eyes widened. A portal to another dimension? That sounds crazy. She flipped through the pages. August 3rd, 1972. I've been experimenting with the portal. I've managed to open it a few times, but it's unstable. I think I need to perform certain rituals to stabilize it. September 10th, 1972. I've found a book on occult rituals that might help. I'm going to try a summoning ritual tonight. Sarah's hands shook as she read. This was getting too weird. She looked around the basement again. Was there a hidden room behind the shelves? She went to the shelves, pushed them aside. Behind them was a small door, almost invisible in the dim light. She hadn't noticed it before. She tried to open it, but it was locked. She searched the box, found a rusty key at the bottom. She picked it up, tried it in the door. It fit. The door creaked open. Inside was a tiny room, no bigger than a closet. The walls were covered with strange symbols and runes. In the center was a pentagram drawn in what looked like blood. Sarah gasped, stepped back. What was this place? She felt a cold breeze coming from the room. The hair on her neck stood up. She heard whispers again, louder this time. "Sarah," a voice said. It sounded like her husband, Mark. "Mark," she called out. "Where are you?" "Sarah, help me," the voice pleaded. She stepped into the room, her phone's light barely penetrating the darkness. The whispers grew louder. She could make out multiple voices, some laughing, some crying. Suddenly, the light from her phone died. She was plunged into total darkness. She screamed, tried to find her way out. But the door seemed to have disappeared. She was trapped in the hidden room, surrounded by the eerie whispers. She sank to the floor, tears streaming down her face. After what felt like hours, she heard footsteps above her. "Help!" she shouted. "I'm down here!" The footsteps stopped. She heard the basement door open. Light flooded in from the top of the stairs. "Mom," it was Emma's voice. "Emma, I'm down here in the hidden room," Sarah yelled. Emma must have found the door because a moment later, light filled the hidden room. "Oh my God, Mom, what are you doing in there?" Emma asked, her eyes wide with fear. Sarah rushed out of the room, hugged her daughter tightly. "I got trapped down here. The door locked behind me." Emma looked confused. "But the door was open when I came down." Sarah frowned. "That's strange, maybe it was just stuck." She looked back at the hidden room. The pentagram was still there, but the whispers had stopped. "Let's get out of here," Sarah said, leading Emma upstairs. As they reached the kitchen, Sarah saw that dinner was still on the stove, untouched. The clock showed it was only 6 p.m., but it felt like she'd been in the basement for hours. Wait a minute, she thought. When she went down to the basement, it was around 5 p.m., so she was only down there for about an hour, but it felt much longer. She shook her head, trying to clear her thoughts. Maybe she was just panicking, lost track of time. Mark came home. A few minutes later, they had dinner together. Sarah didn't mention her ordeal in the basement. She didn't want to worry her family. That night, as Sarah lay in bed, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. She kept hearing whispers in her mind. The image of the pentagram haunted her. She tossed and turned, unable to sleep. Finally, she got up, went to the basement door. It was closed. She could hear soft muttering coming from below. She opened the door, listened. The muttering grew louder. It sounded like multiple people talking at once. She flicked the light switch, but again, the light didn't work. She grabbed a flashlight from the hall closet, descended the stairs. The basement was empty, but the hidden room's door was open. She approached it cautiously. Inside, the pentagram glowed with a faint red light. The whispers were coming from the pentagram. Sarah's blood ran cold. She stepped back, but the door swung shut behind her, trapping her again. She screamed, pounded on the door, but it was no use. She was stuck. As she turned to face the pentagram, a dark figure emerged from it. It was a tall, cloaked figure with glowing red eyes. "Welcome, Sarah," it said in a rasping voice. "You found your way to us." Sarah tried to run, but her legs wouldn't move. She was paralyzed with fear. The figure reached out a skeletal hand, touched her forehead. She felt a burning sensation, screamed. Then everything went black. When Sarah woke up, she was in her bed. It was morning. She sat up, disoriented. Was it all a dream? She checked the time. 7:00 p.m. She got up, went to the kitchen. Mark was already there, making coffee. "Good morning," he said, kissing her cheek. "Sleep well?" Sarah nodded, but she wasn't sure. She went to the basement door, opened it. The light was working. The basement looked normal. The hidden room's door was closed. When she opened it, it was just an empty storage space, no pentagram, no strange symbols. She must have imagined the whole thing, she thought. Maybe she was overtired. But as she went about her day, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching her, waiting for her to let her guard down. That night, as she tucked her children into bed, she heard a whisper in her ear. "We'll be waiting for you, Sarah." She whirled around, but there was no one there. She shivered, pulled the covers tight around her. Sleep was a long time coming that night.